Pastor here at Queen Street United Methodist Church, and welcome to our Wesley Bible study. We are doing chapters 13 and 14 this morning of 1 Samuel, and it's really hard to say where this is in the course of Saul's reign as king. We've had two different versions of how he became king, and there is a constant tension between him and Samuel. Samuel never wanted a king. Samuel doesn't want anything to do with making a king. He anoints Saul as a ruler, not as a king. The people elect him as a king by voice vote. And so now the question is, who's really got the power? Okay? So before we get into this, I want to talk a little bit about there's an ongoing tension between Israel and the Philistines, and you're going to see that the Philistines have generally, technologically, the upper hand. Also, I want to preface this by saying that this section of 1 Samuel is speculatively translated because there are gaps and there are divisions between the Masoretic text, which is like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the 70, which is the Greek Bible. So in some cases, in some translations, you're going to have numbers that don't appear in the other translations.
I'm mad leaving. I realize I have nursery.
Oh, okay. Take care of them kids. And don't spend all our money on them. Okay, first, the culture that exists at the late Bronze Age, which is when this is taking place, there's a transition from bronze to iron, okay? In order to make bronze, you have to combine copper and zinc. And zinc is not naturally available in that part of the world, so it's got to be imported, actually mostly from Afghanistan. And so in order to make something bronze, you have to violate the Mosaic law, because the Mosaic law does not allow you to combine two dissimilar things. That's in food, that's in clothing, and that's also in metalwork. So the Israelites are by law prohibited from making bronze instruments, okay? Now you've got a transition going into the Iron Age. And iron has been available, but it hasn't been available in a way where they figured out how to harden it, okay, in order to make useful implements out of iron. And in order to do that, in order to really harden iron to the point where it becomes a kind of rudimentary steel, you've got to add carbon to the iron while it's molten. And then what comes out would be steel. So if you had an iron sword, a pure iron sword, coming up against a bronze sword, the bronze sword would break the iron sword. Okay, but when you add some carbon, then all of a sudden bronze got a problem.
Okay, can I ask a question, because I don't understand it? Why would they say you couldn't join those two metals? What was the really reason behind that? That may be way off the subject, but I'm just curious.
I don't know. It may be...
Was that a Moses thing?
Yes, it
or was
was.
that a God thing?
Kind of both. Okay, God created the heavens and the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and each time he added to the inventory, he said, God saw that this was good.
Right.
Okay, so if it was good the way it was.
You need to change it.
Yeah, like, you start blending things and you're kind of getting away from the original creation. Okay.
So we're really away from the original creation today.
Oh, we're leaps and bounds beyond the original creation. So I know I am.
Wouldn't God have seen that down the road? It makes me think that this was Moses's decision not to mix things. Just me and my thought.
That's a good thought.
Wasn't it symbolic as well, as far as the Israelites were not to mix?
There's a,
with other,
they're not supposed to mix with other cultures.
so
Okay, oh, and, okay, I'll add this in. Blacksmiths were not considered artisans. Blacksmiths were considered to be wizards. So the ability, like alchemists, okay? So there was something a little bit demonic in smithing, okay? Blacksmiths as a guild had a tattoo or a brand on their skin that identified them, and it was a pagan emblem. Okay, so he's like a practitioner of the god of bronze kind of thing. And Israelites weren't allowed to have any recognition of anything pagan. So that's another reason why they
Well,
didn't
and
do
you
it.
can kind of, in my mind, I can kind of see it.
Yeah,
There were narrow-minded people at that time.
unlike us.
About certain things they were. That that they would have thought that was bad to combine two materials.
Because that's not how God made it.
Yeah.
So you couldn't have wool and linen in a garment, okay? Everything kosher had to be distinct and separate, you know? So there's that idea of purity and a loyalty to the way God made things to begin with. At the same time, that put them technologically a few centuries behind the Philistines. So, so we see in the end of chapter 13. Yeah, make sure I got this right. Okay. There we go, 13. At the end of 13, you're going to see how the Philistines have a technological advantage over the people. All right, let's look at 13. In 13 it says Saul was, and we don't know how many years old he was. Typically, like in the books of Kings, you're going to see the age of the person who ascends to the throne and then how many years they reign. Okay? In this one, we don't know, because the Masoretic text doesn't really, there's a blank in there. So they left it blank in the translation in New RSV. But in NIV, they hearken back to the Greek Bible that does have numbers. Okay, so if you have an NIV translation or one that is based on the Greek, then the numbers are going to be in there. Saul was X years old when he began to reign, and he reigned X and 2 years over Israel. Saul chose 3,000 out of Israel. 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. Now, this translation's got Gibeah and Gilgal and all these. They just, you don't know exactly where they are, okay? But it's horribly mixed up. So the translators did as best they could, and if you really want to get into why these things are messed up, get into some of the footnotes that you might see in the NRSV. 1,000 were with Jonathan. Jonathan is the crown prince. This is the first time he pops up. Okay. Understand also, you have Saul, who's anointed king when he's a teenager. Okay. Now you're jumping ahead to where he has an adult son who's a warrior. So you see, there's something has transpired. The rest of the people he sent home to their tents. Okay, Jonathan defeated the garrison of the Philippines that was at Geba, and the Philistines heard of it. And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." All right, they never referred to themselves as Hebrews. They referred to themselves as Israelites. But for some reason, Saul is calling together the Hebrews, which is a derivative of an Egyptian term called Abiru, which means foreigner. Okay, so you wouldn't think that he would refer to his own people as foreigners. Also, the moniker of Habiru or Hebrew was insulting. So it's like George Washington called all the Yankees together. And you know how that term goes over down here. Anyway. All right, so he's calling he's mustering the militia, basically from all the tribes. Let the Hebrews hear when all Israel, see now they go Israel, heard that Saul had defeated the garrison of the Philistines and also that Israel had become odious to the Philistines. Well, they were always odious to the Philistines. The people were called out to join Saul at Gilgal. The Philistines mustered to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and troops like the sand of the sea in multitude. They came up and encamped at Michmash, to the east of Beth Aven. Beth Aven, that's what it is. When the Israelites saw that they were in distress, for the troops were hard pressed, the people hid themselves in caves and holes and rocks and in tombs and in cisterns. Bad idea. Some Hebrews crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul was still at Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. Okay, they mustered, but they weren't confident. All right? And they weren't confident because they were outgunned. What happened was that the Philistines made an encampment at Michmash, and they sent out small raiding parties. Okay? And when the Israelites resisted, they mustered their whole army to come. So that's kind of the context of what's happening. And they, you know how numbers go in the Old Testament, but anyway, they had a lot more people than the Hebrews seem to have. The people hid themselves in caves, holes, rocks, and tombs, and cisterns. Some Hebrews crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul was still at Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. So they were scared. He waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel. So who's setting the rules? Samuel says, I'll be there in 7 days. So he's got an army up and ready to fight, and Samuel does not appear on time. Samuel has a bad watch. He is consistently late. And he is consistently late deliberately, because he wants Saul to wait on him, just to show who's the boss. Samuel sets the time. Samuel shows up late according to his own schedule, okay? And Saul is in desperate straits at that point. He waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people began to slip away from Saul, because they saw that Saul didn't have authority enough to get Samuel there on time. So they are losing confidence in Saul, which is exactly what Samuel wanted them to do. So Saul said, bring the burnt offering here to me and the offerings of well-being, and he offered the burnt offering. All right. We really don't have nothing in the context of this period is consistent with the sacrificial legislation that was set out in Deuteronomy. Okay? We got a king. The king is anointed of the Lord. Was he anointed of the Lord to perform religious ceremonies? Samuel would say no, and did. Okay? So what you have here is the first instant of the controversy of the combining of church and state. Okay? We've got that now in England, because the king is the head of the church in England. Okay? Does that make him a bishop? Does that make him eligible to ordain people? Yes, you see where we're going with this? So they've still got this stuff, and it's in its infancy. And it's easy for somebody to make a mistake, especially if his army is leading off. They've lost confidence in him, so he's got to reestablish his leadership. So he offers the offering that you're supposed to offer before a battle. As soon as he had finished offering the burnt offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to meet him and salute him. So you see, Saul is still acknowledging him as as the holy man. And if Saul is saluting him, he's paying homage to him. I saluted people who outranked me. And all of those people who didn't outrank me saluted me. Okay. So he salutes him, which means that he's acknowledging that Samuel's of a higher rank. Samuel said, "What have you done?" So this is not nice, okay? But this is exactly what Samuel was hoping he would do. Saul replied, "When I saw that people were slipping away from me and that you did not come within the days appointed, and that the Philistines were mustering at Michmash, I said, now the Philistines will come upon me at Gilgal, and I have not entreated the favor of the Lord. So I forced myself on account of you." Okay, I forced myself and offered the burnt offering. Samuel said to Saul, "You have done foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you." All right. We don't have that specifically, but what we do have is a record that Samuel put together a job description for the king when they elected Saul to be king. We don't know what was in the job description. Okay? Maybe it was in the job description that you're not allowed to offer sacrifice. But we're not privy to the text of the job description. Okay? We do have a job description for a king that comes from Deuteronomy. And that mostly had that he was going to basically act as a judge, that he wasn't going to put himself above anybody else, that he was going to study the law constantly and rule over the people. Basically, he was going to be a judge. That's the role that God laid out in Deuteronomy for the king. But we have seen judges offer sacrifices, Gideon did that. So, it's not out of the realm of... We're coming out of the point where everybody did what was right in their own eyes. Okay? So what are the hard and fast rules? Samuel, just move the goalpost, I think.
Samuel sounds like the steward on the first day of Gettysburg.
That's exactly right. Yeah. He just
Didn't get there.
didn't get there. Yep. The comment was that Samuel was like Jeb Stuart at the Battle of Gettysburg, where Jeb Stuart found himself riding around the Union Army as a way of glorifying himself, and showed up late to the battle, and Lee was then blind to what the Union was actually doing. So he was mad at Jeb, and all he had to say was, "I'm disappointed in you," and Jeb was ready to commit suicide over that. Okay. So he's done foolishly. The Lord would have established your kingdom in Israel forever, but now your kingdom will not continue. Oh, he's already vetoing the vote of the people and the will of the people. Okay? And he's already setting up a coup, because he says the Lord has sought out a man after his own heart. Who has been described as a man after God's own heart? Who would that be?
David?
That was David. Okay, so here we have an anticipation of who's going to be anointed. Okay?
But is this a God thing?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Saul is saying all these things that you went against God's law. God hadn't set up these laws or these things for the king. Not that we've read anywhere.
Not that we've read.
So Samuel's trying to build himself up
Yes.
as the leader. still the leader.
Yes, and he doesn't like that Saul is king. So how do you diminish the authority of the king? You say that somebody else besides Jonathan is going to be king. He does everything he can to undermine Saul. And remember, Saul didn't want the job to begin with. Okay? Samuel dragged him into it. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart, and the Lord has appointed him to be ruler over his people because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you. Well, how about the guy that was after God's own heart? Was he real good at keeping commandments? Not especially, okay? And Samuel left and went on his way from Gilgal. The rest of the people followed Saul to join the army. They went up from Gilgal toward Gibeah of Benjamin. So I'm not sure that anybody in the army was really privy to the stress between Saul and Samuel, but something like that is very hard to hide in an army because their armies are good at rumors. Okay, prep for battle. Saul counted the people who were present with him, about 600 men. That's not a lot when you consider what the Philistines are putting together. Okay, Saul, his son Jonathan, and the people who were present with them stayed in Gibeah of Benjamin, but the Philistines encamped at Michmash. Now remember, earlier in the chapter it said Saul had 2,000 people, Jonathan had 1,000. Now they're down to 600. A lot of people left. Okay, and the raiders came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company toward Ophrah, in the land of Shul. Another company turned toward Beth Horon, and another company turned toward the mountain that looks down upon the valley of Zeboim, toward the wilderness. Okay? Now there was no smith to be found in all the land of Israel, for the Philistines said, Hebrews must not make swords or spears for themselves. So all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen their plowshares, mattocks, axes, and sickles. That's no good. Okay? So you got to rely on your enemy. It is something like what we are transitioning from in our dependence on China for some of our key national defense issues, like lithium and stuff like that, where they have cornered the market. So all of a sudden, if we want to build sophisticated systems, we don't have access to the heavy metals that are necessary for that. And so, you know, somebody has finally taken a look at that and said, you know, this is probably not a good scenario. So we're trying to become more independent of foreign suppliers for our national defense supplies. All right. Anyway, the Israelites have that problem. And it's expensive. The charge was 2/3 of a shekel for the plowshares and for the mattocks, and 1/3 of shekel for sharpening the axes and for setting the goads. Goads are what you poke an ox with. So on the day of the battle, neither sword nor spear was to be found in the possession of any of the people with Saul and Jonathan, but Saul and his son Jonathan had them. So the only 2 guys look at it. The only 2 guys in the army, yeah, with swords are the king and his kid. This kind of reminds me of what I saw when I was with the National Guard and they started bringing in computers. The first computer always went on the Adjutant General's desk. And he was the least technically experienced person in all the National Guard. So he's got a computer on his desk that's gathering dust until they can get computers out to the people who work for him. It's like stupid. Okay. Okay, so Jonathan surprises and routs the Philistines. Okay. Now a garrison of the Philistines had gone out to the pass of Michmash. One day Jonathan, son of Saul, said to the young man who carried his armor, "Come, let us go over to the Philistine garrison on the other side," but he did not tell his father. All right? This is not good. Saul was staying on the outskirts of Gibeah under the pomegranate tree that is in Migron. The people who were with him were about 600 men, along with Ahijah, son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, son of Phinehas, that corrupt son of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the landlord in Shiloh carrying an ephod, so they've got a priest with them. I don't know why Saul didn't have him do the sacrifice, you know? Now the people did not know that Jonathan was gone. In the pass by which Jonathan tried to go over to the Philistine garrison, there was a rocky crag on one side and a rocky crag on the other. The name of one was Bozez, and the other was Senech. One crag rose up north in front of Michmash, and the other on the south front of Gibeah. All right, so what's happened is that you've got the Philistines encamped on a plateau in a mountain area, okay, and they're limited access points to that plateau, easily defended. Jonathan said to the young man who carried his armor, "Come, let us go up over to the garrison of these uncircumcised Gentiles. It may be that the Lord will act for us." It may be. That's a lot of confidence. Okay? That might be. Could be. Could. I mean, you know, he's not saying it's a sure thing. But it may be that God will help us, okay? Maybe the Lord will act for us, or nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few. His armor bearer said to him, "Do all that your mind inclines to. I am with you. As your mind is, so is mine." Okay, good subordinate there. Then Jonathan said, "Now we will cross over to those men and will show ourselves to them." That's a dumb idea. If they say to us, "Wait until we come to you," then we will stand still in our place and we will not go up to them. But if they say, "Come up to us," then we will go up, for the Lord has given them into our hand. That will be the sign for us. If you really want to test what God's doing, get into a fight assuming that God is going to be with you. Okay. So both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, "Look, Hebrews are coming." See, there's that diminutive term. Are coming out of the holes where they have hidden themselves, so you know they don't hold them in high regard. The men of the garrison hailed Jonathan and his armor bearer, saying, "Come up to us, and we will show you something." I'll bet I know what they're going to show him. Jonathan said to his armor bearer, "Come up after me, for the Lord has given them into our hand." Then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet. So this is a steep thing. He's going to be worn out by the time he gets to the top, with his armor bearer following him. The Philistines fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer coming after him killed them. In that first attack, Jonathan and his armor bearer killed about 20 men. So each one of them, you know, you got 10 guys each, if you want to divvy it up, within an area of about half a furrow long, an acre of land. There was panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people, the garrison, and even the raiders trembled. The earth quaked. Now that helps. Okay? The earth quaked, and it became a very great panic. Saul's lookouts in Gibeah of Benjamin were watching as the multitude was surging back and forth. Then Saul said to the troops who were with him, "Call the roll, see who's gone from us." And when they called the roll, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. Saul said to Ahijah, "Bring the ark of God here." So they had the ark with them too. For all that time the ark of God went with the Israelites. While Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the camp of the Philistines increased more and more, and Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul and all the people who were with him rallied and went into battle, and every sword that they didn't have was against the other. Okay, so that's Philistines fighting sword on sword. So that there was very great confusion. And like I say, one of Murphy's laws of combat is friendly fire isn't. Now the Hebrews who previously been with the Philistines had gone up with them into the camp. All right, what's going on here? The Hebrews who were with the Philistines went up. Who are these people?
Some that left Saul, some that deserted.
Okay, these are freelancers. They are mercenaries.
Okay.
Okay, the Philistines hired some Hebrews to fight with them. So they are mercenaries. If your whole army, or if a good portion of your army is made up of mercenaries, you better have the wherewithal to pay them. Okay? And that's true with any army.
But why would the Philistines feel like they had to pay somebody? They had already outnumbered and had chariots and weapons that
Yeah,
the other side.
but if you
didn't
can
have.
afford, listen, if I can afford somebody to go in and fight for me, why risk it?
True.
Okay?
But
And what
these
could
guys
be
get
better?
killed and not.
Yeah,
Right.
and what could be better if their own people kill each other?
Yeah.
Okay? It's just like the Chinese sent fentanyl over here to kill military-age men. Not to get addicted, but to kill military-age men. That was their strategy. Okay? So the Philistines have found a way to get Hebrews to kill Hebrews. Okay? The problem is that if the battle is going the wrong way, your mercenaries might flip. Okay? This happened to King Edward when he tried to get the Scots to fight the Irish.
But would they flip if they weren't being paid?
Hmm?
Would they flip if they weren't being paid?
They would flip if they weren't being paid. And right now, it looks like the guy who pays you may not be alive, so you might as well collect spoil. Okay? If you're just interested in the money, who's winning? Interesting. This was going on, I mean, this kind of thing happened a lot. You know, when we read histories about the wars between the Greeks and the Persians, most of the Persian army that they put against the Greeks were Greek. You know, they were on the other side of Turkey, and they were part of the Persian Empire, and they were Greeks. They were Greeks in their heritage, they were Greeks in their military and their tactics, they were Greeks. So when you hear about these big wars between the Greeks and the Persians, the frontline people are Greek, fighting Greek. You want to put your most... Two different philosophies here. Okay, I'll just back up a little bit. In a dictatorship, when it comes to war, you will put your most expendable troops on the front line. Sometimes even hoping that they will get killed. That your enemy will expend the enemy's munitions on people that you wanted to get rid of anyway. In Desert Storm, when we attacked Iran or Iraq, the people that we encountered on the front lines of the Iraqi army were Christian. Okay, and they were not well equipped. They were not good fighters.
And were they there because they chose to be or because they were made to be?
Everything in a dictatorship is not because of you want to.
I mean, right, so there you go. If you don't want to be it, yeah, you'll switch and...
Yeah, but if you try not to be, then you don't have to worry about us killing you. The Iraqis will kill you, okay? So that's the way it works in a dictatorship, okay? They keep their best troops in the rear. And we saw that happen in Desert Storm, where he kept his Republican Guards and his elite troops way back from the front. Okay? And then the more elite they get, the closer they are to the head of state. That's the way it works in a dictatorship. The American military philosophy is quite different. In American military philosophy, you don't have troops that you are happy to expend going to the front line. You're putting the best training and the best equipment available to those troops, even though they might just be leg infantry. You equip them fully and you put them on the front line if you have to, because they're superior. You want them to be superior troops to what's coming at you. And what's coming at you is generally the lousiest troops that the enemy has to offer. Okay? So we don't put our worst troops on the front. The objective for us is that we don't have worst troops. Okay, so anyway, he's finding that Benjamin is not there. So, okay, I'm going over a little bit. But anyway, when he discovers that Benjamin is not there, and we'll pick up here next week, what Benjamin has done is heroic.
I mean, Jonathan.
Jonathan. What he's done is heroic, okay, but stupid. So if I was his commander, I would give him a medal and a court-martial. Okay?
Thought God was evidently with him.
Yeah, God evidently was with him, and that, you know, so they may have had a different perspective on these things. But like I said in the past, this is what happens when you have a warrior mentality in your army. That each person, like in that old stupid army commercials, an army of one, that's warrior. That's stupid. That's not how you're supposed to fight. You're supposed to fight in coordination, okay? And Jonathan was making a name for himself. Okay, he succeeded in making a name for himself, but at the same time, it would have been nice if the rest of the Army could have gotten a little bit of glory out of that too. So, anyway, we're going to pick it up. There's going to be more conflict, and there's going to be Samuel not being happy again, and there's just all kinds of issues that we're going to be dealing with. So, at the end of chapter 14, we'll pick up next Sunday, and God bless you.